The recent election results have shaken the political landscape in America, leaving millions disheartened, shocked, and questioning what went wrong. In a loss that's already drawing parallels to Hillary Clinton's defeat in 2016, Democrats have suffered a significant setback that will likely become a landmark in American political studies. For many, this election felt like a last stand, a critical moment to stave off the threats posed by Trump's re-election campaign and Republican momentum. But the results have proven otherwise, igniting a wave of frustration, confusion, and calls for introspection among Democrats and left-leaning voters. The election loss feels both unexpected and, in many ways, painfully reminiscent of the pitfalls of past campaigns. Political analysts, Democratic strategists, and engaged citizens are left to ponder a long list of hard questions. What missteps did the Democrats make? Did rhetoric on immigration and economic populism waver too much? Why did their message fail to capture the popular imagination? And what must they do differently to prevent a similar defeat in the future? This video delves deeply into the possible reasons behind this unprecedented loss and the steps that Democrats must consider to secure a better future. 1. Analyzing the shock. Why did this happen? The sheer magnitude of this election defeat has left Democratic voters reeling. Many factors contributed to this loss, creating an almost perfect storm against a successful Democratic campaign. Several core issues stand out as particularly critical to understanding this outcome, including weak messaging on economic populism, a failure to resonate with working-class voters, and the lack of a unifying, forward-looking vision. Economic populism and a shift away from key issues. Democrats have long held the support of those championing economic reform and worker protections, yet the party's recent rhetoric failed to maintain this advantage. Their messaging increasingly focused on institutional safeguards and procedural narratives rather than tackling kitchen table issues. The appeal of economic populism, a powerful tool in galvanizing voters who feel abandoned by elites, seemed to take a backseat. This shift may have alienated a broad swath of working-class Americans who perceive that the Democratic Party no longer prioritizes their concerns. Immigration and identity politics. Immigration continues to be a polarizing topic in the U.S., and Democrats have struggled to strike the right balance. While the left traditionally defended immigrant rights and sought to combat xenophobic rhetoric, recent Democratic statements appeared more muted on the issue. In this election cycle, some Democrats even adopted a tougher stance on immigration, attempting to appeal to moderates while losing their base's enthusiasm. Republicans, meanwhile, capitalized on this by adopting aggressively populist rhetoric on immigration, solidifying support among voters wary of lax border policies. The gender divide. Data from the election results reveal an undeniable gender divide that has affected the political climate. Male voters, particularly working-class and rural men, leaned overwhelmingly conservative. The Republican Party has successfully mobilized this demographic, cultivating a narrative that positions them as defenders of traditional American values, which some Democratic messaging failed to address effectively. 2. Miscalculated optimism and the surprise factor. The loss was especially painful due to the optimism that many Democrats and liberal commentators had projected. Analysts and public opinion pollsters anticipated a much more favorable outcome for the Democratic candidates. This overconfidence was not only misinformed, but also contributed to an atmosphere of complacency within the campaign efforts. The Democratic leadership and campaign organizers underestimated the power of the Republican base and the effectiveness of their grassroots mobilization. While Democratic candidates were focusing on key urban areas, Republican organizers were pouring resources into rural America, leveraging the power of local influencers and rallying support in the heartland. Misreading the populist appeal. A central miscalculation was underestimating Trump's enduring influence and the appeal of his populist message. Despite his turbulent first term, Trump's promises of change and economic revival continue to resonate. For many Americans, especially in economically struggling areas, Trump's simple and direct messaging offers a sense of hope. Democrats, meanwhile, were perceived as overly focused on elite-driven issues like climate change and regulatory policies, which are important but may feel removed from the everyday struggles of average Americans. 3. A disconnected campaign strategy. The Democratic Party's strategy often seems at odds with the needs and interests of its broad and diverse base. This election illuminated the struggle of Democrats to communicate a cohesive, inspiring message that unifies urban and rural voters, blue-collar workers, and the progressive youth. The Democratic message was divided, often relying on policy-heavy language and procedural promises that felt detached from grassroots realities. The emphasis on institutional integrity and preserving democracy seemed vital to progressives, but this language failed to resonate with many rural and middle American voters who feel left behind. Democratic candidates often prioritized institutional reform and anti-Trump rhetoric, underestimating the importance of connecting personally with voters' immediate concerns. 4. The role of media and misinformation. Media coverage played a significant role in shaping public perception throughout the campaign. Republicans successfully leveraged narratives surrounding freedom, security, and protecting the American way, drawing a stark contrast with Democratic messaging. Conservative news outlets amplified fear-based messaging about crime, border security, and economic threats, while Democrats struggled to counteract this on platforms that reached the broad, rural voter base. Meanwhile, misinformation ran rampant, often spread by social media algorithms that reinforce bias and amplify divisive content. The Democrats faced an uphill battle as they attempted to fight disinformation with fact-checking and appeals to reason, but the speed and reach of misinformation often left them unable to respond quickly or effectively. 5. What comes next? Strategies for the future. The Democratic Party faces a difficult road ahead. To avoid a repeat of this devastating loss, they must rethink their campaign strategies and reconnect with a broader base. Here are some recommended strategies that could help Democrats regain lost ground. Emphasize economic security. Democrats must reprioritize economic security as a cornerstone of their platform, placing the concerns of workers, small business owners, and middle-class Americans front and center. Rather than relying solely on institutional language, Democrats should frame their policies in terms of direct impact, job security, health care access, wage improvements, and protection against inflation. Reconnect with rural America. For Democrats to regain their footing, they must bridge the urban-rural divide by investing in outreach initiatives in rural communities. Candidates should emphasize respect for these communities' contributions to the nation and work to understand and address their unique concerns rather than assuming loyalty to traditional Democratic strongholds. Combat misinformation with engagement. Countering misinformation requires a proactive and continuous effort to reach voters where they are. Democrats need to build digital networks that can respond rapidly and provide factual, appealing content. Educating the public on issues that matter, such as climate change, healthcare, and economic equity, will only be effective if Democrats connect these issues to everyday lives. Adapt messaging to a populist climate. Populism is here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. Democrats need to find a way to incorporate a populist touch into their messaging, connecting with voters' real and pressing needs. They should highlight the injustices faced by the working class and propose concrete solutions that resonate. 6. A call to unity and resilience. In the wake of this defeat, Democrats must look inward and strive for unity among their ranks. Now is the time for coalition building within the party, embracing progressive and moderate perspectives alike to create a united front that can appeal to a diverse array of voters. While this setback is significant, it is also an opportunity to rebuild, to strategize, and to learn from the mistakes of the past. The shock of this election loss will reverberate for years to come, serving as a stark reminder of the challenges that lie ahead. The Democrats have experienced a wake-up call, but they are not without hope. If the party can seize this moment to reflect, reorganize, and reconnect with the American people, they can begin the hard work of rebuilding a vision that resonates across social, economic and cultural divides. Ultimately, the lesson is clear. Democrats must find a way to embody the hopes and concerns of everyday Americans. This loss will indeed haunt the party for decades, but if they can turn that haunting into a rallying cry, they may yet find a path forward toward a stronger, more united future.